Hi YouTube. Just gonna try and do a quick video on how I modified my MFT3 to work with a Mafell F-Series guide rail. So I didn't have to actually do any modification, physical modification to the MFT to get this to fit. But I'm just gonna try and rush through some of this stuff. The back end on the MFT, if for those of you that have it, you'll know there's a hinge plate back here. The hinge plate has two holes, one up top, one down lower, and that's designed to mate with this feather key, which slides into the T-track on the Festool guide rail, and then these two bolts, basically, they're just Allen head bolts, come in and tighten the whole assembly. So that, again, fixes the guide rail to this hinge plate. Now the feather key is too thick for the Mafell guide rails. Their T-track profiles are quite a bit shallower. So this wouldn't work without some additional machining. Kind of a shout out to Jonathan at the Mafell Users Forum. He found that Craig makes a T-bolt. This is a 1/4 T-bolt, but from Craig, that has a shallow enough head. This will fit perfectly in the T-track on the Mafell guide rails. So, you know, I wound up buying, again, this was kind of something that Jonathan had found, but I wound up ordering one, and it's a Craig KKS 1030 clamp block set. Basically, it includes 5 of these T-bolts, it includes 5 of these plastic clamp block heads, and then it also includes 5 of these knurled nuts. Now, these are plastic knurled nuts, but they actually wind up working really well for this application. So, $13 or $15, and I got, you know, 5 of these T-bolts. So, kind of pricey, but obviously a lot less money than taking this to a machine shop and having them machine this down to an adequate thickness. And even if I did do that, I was concerned I wouldn't have enough meat for the threads for this to kind of come and re-engage and pull the whole assembly tight. So. Now these I did find in the interim. You can buy direct from Craig. I sent them an email just asking. They will sell you their 1/4 T-bolts. I think they're, I don't know, 8-10 cents a piece, something like that, plus shipping and tax. So obviously a little more economical way to go, but I didn't even know that was an option when I ordered this. So this works. So again, all I do is 2 T-bolts on the back side of the rail in the T-track on the Mafell. Basically get that threaded, pre-threaded into this hinge plate, and then slide the rail on. Bring that in and line it up so that it's close to 90 degrees on the table. Actually, so it's pretty much dead on 90 degrees to this fence, and then tighten those down. So those two wind up holding the plate in, or holding the guide rail very well. I'd say just as well as the Festool rail with this feather key. So, now on this end of the table, there's basically an alignment pin. This isn't the one that comes on the Festool table. I'm going to take the camera off the tripod here and show you, because I left it intact. Basically you have, sorry it's shaky, you have a steel plate. This raises and lowers depending on the thickness of material you're cutting. That steel plate has a small shelf. It's a support for the guide rail, and then it has this alignment pin that comes up and into the other end of the T-track. That's what lines your, like pulls the guide rail back into alignment. So if there's any play in the rail on the other end on the hinge plate, this will take and pull it into perfect alignment. Now this is too tall, again because the Mafell guide rails have a shallower T-track. So one option is you could take and grind this off to match the depth and width of the Mafell T-track. I didn't want to do that because that steel pin actually wound up causing damage to my Festool guide rail. Let's see what end I've got here. This is the FS 1082, which comes with the MFT3, and over time that steel pin winds up gouging the guide rail. Now of course as you use it you could just take and reposition the guide rail so that the pin's striking different parts of the rail, but at some point it's going to wind up being damaged to the point where you just need to replace the rail. What winds up happening here is you get some slop, some side-to-side slop, so you lose that accuracy of the alignment pin. Now I've added, this is an accessory from a third party, it's called the slop stop. Bad lighting, can't see it, sorry. Basically it's a piece of dense plastic that slides in on the T-track, and it has some tapered ends that allow you to take and snug up to the alignment pin. So you snug that into the alignment pin, recalibrate the table, and now you're back to having something that's tight and accurate. You can flip this as if it gets worn. Of course, you can flip it around and use the contact on the other side. I think this is like a $15 part, again from a gentleman on, I think he sells them on eBay. Works pretty well. I obviously wasn't aware of it in the beginning, and that's where my rail got damaged. So I didn't want that to happen to the Festool guide rail, or sorry, to the Mafell guide rail. So I wound up machining basically an adapter plate out of Corian. So I had some scraps of Corian and wound up machining a block here. So this basically emulates the same support or ledge that you would have had for the guide rail on this side, and then of course over on this side. And then I have an alignment pin that's cut to the exact width of the T-track slot on the Mafell guide rail. So there's no slop. I did sand a small bevel on the edges here, so that when you drop the rail into position, it just slides right into position. Now the height of this, it's so thick because I wanted to keep the steel pin in place on the Festool piece. You can replace that steel plate, so if you decide to lop that off and add something that's a little slimmer, you can do that. I think the plate's around $8 from Festool. Again, I just decided to leave mine on. I've attached this with some fast cap Durabond tape. It's on there really, really well. What else? I made this so that when it's in the nested position, so if I take and I release the clamp on this side, push this down into this kind of lowered nested position reclamp, you don't run into any issue with material coming into contact with that alignment pin. It's just below the material by about half a millimeter, maybe a millimeter, so it's close, but you don't come into contact. Of course, to set that up, just show you how it works with the guide rail. Nothing really special about this, but just to show that it does work. You just take and set your height of the hinge side first. At least that's how I do it. So if I was cutting 1/2 inch material, which I have here, I just butt that into the fence, bring the rail up to that height. Then I bring it in on this side, release the clamp, push this up and into the guide rail, and you could see it found that locating pin, and it actually moved the position of the rail. I lock that down, and now I've got it set up for a perfect 90-degree cut. So again, if I needed to move this, reposition the piece I'm cutting, then drop the rail back down, it drops right into that alignment pin. So that's it. Thanks for watching.